Welcome to the Fantasy Football Predictive Analytics podcast with Rhys Tiller, special guest Jeff Haseley. Jeff, how goes it?
It's doing great, guys. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on the show. And let's talk about football that's coming up in a week from today. Today being Thursday, when we're taping this show. We're gonna have live football. We're gonna have points for our fantasy teams in 1 week.
Oh man, it's getting real, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yep, and then it'll be football straight all the way through until February. My wife's probably like, I roll.
Oh yeah,
But
we have a football widow and a football sister widow in this household, and just for the audience to see how long I've known Jeff. Jeff and I started at Football Guys the same year in 2007, I think.
That's right.
And it's hard to believe that we're on whatever this year is, 15 season.
Yeah,
and so,
I think so.
Wow.
Just think about all the things that have changed. Remember, we used to do the Football Guys magazine.
Oh yeah.
Right, all that stuff. The CD-ROM.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, good times. Good technology.
I have a T-shirt that says I'm a beta tester for the Draft Dominator.
That's right. I forgot about
that.
Not
to say that I'm old, but I'm old.
I forgot about that shirt. Oh my gosh, I have it somewhere, or I gave it away or something. I don't recall, but I remember. I totally remember that shirt.
Oh yeah.
Funny.
You mentioned fantasy points being scored on next Thursday. There's gonna be a lot of them scored when it's Cowboys Buccaneers.
Yeah, in fact, from what I understand, I mean that's a pretty high line too. What is it? 50, 52 points, something like that. And I think Tampa is well, they're the home team, so they're favored by a touchdown, I think, or 6.5, something like that. Whatever the latest odds are, 7.5 I'm seeing. Okay. And that seems about right. I mean, Super Bowl champion, you got Tom Brady. All he does is win Super Bowls and, of course, collect rings. And we don't know what's going on with Dak Prescott as of yet. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I think the entire country is. Anyone who's an NFL fan is. And there's a lot of NFL fans who are Cowboys fans. So you've got that in the corner, right?
Yeah.
And then anyone else is just like, oh, Tom Brady's playing. Oh, I guess I could watch. So it's gonna be a great kickoff, and we're gonna find out exactly how quick of a ramp up time Dak Prescott needs here without any kind of preseason. He's coming not only the shoulder injury but the ankle injury too, and so many times we see these compensatory injuries off of a player who might hurt, like in this case hurts his ankle, then he hurts his shoulder. Well, we're all connected, right? So it's possible that might not be the last one we see of him. So in terms of injuries, but yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to it.
We'll start calling him Tony Romo, I guess.
But for me, growing up, I was a Cowboys fan, but I'm anti Jerry Jones, and for so many reasons. And so, I don't mind watching him lose on national TV on the prime time.
Oh.
I'm not a Brady fan by any means, but I wouldn't mind cheering for the Bucks to win by, a bunch, and then keep panning over to
there's a little bit of a degree of satisfaction when, like, if it's like a crushing type of victory and they pan up into a skybox where Jerry Jones is sitting, and of course, he just has that look on his face, like, this is only week 1.
Yeah.
But shoot, we can only hope that we'll have a game like that.
Oh yeah.
So what is the week 1 matchup you're most looking forward to?
Well, I mean, as a Panthers fan, I'm looking forward to Panthers and Jets and Sam Darnold versus his former team, right? So
and Robbie.
I'm looking forward to that. I mean, the Tampa Bay Dallas game definitely is going to have a lot of eyes on it. I'm curious to see how Joe Burrow is going to play.
Yeah.
Cincinnati is going to play their home versus Minnesota. So it'll be it'll be interesting to see exactly how much he is either back or not quite back from his ACL injury that was only, I think, just 9 months ago or close to 9 months. He's almost like right on that threshold period. So that's an interesting one. I'm still curious to see how Chicago is going to do because you've got Justin Fields as a possibility. I don't think that Matt Nagy wants to put him in against the Rams defense and Aaron Donald, and I don't blame him, but everybody wants to see what Justin Fields can do. And you have to think that he's a better opportunity for playmaking than Andy Dalton. And maybe Andy Dalton, of course, you could argue that, he has the intelligence, the brain, the experience, the knowledge, the smarts that you kind of need on an opening type of game, especially against a defense like the Rams. But San Francisco, what are they going to go with, right? With Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance? Everyone's excited to see Trey Lance, myself included. We could pick any game and we can talk about what the storylines are. So feel free. I feel like I'm taking up all your airtime.
I was going to say Robbie Anderson gets the revenge game as well.
True.
And I don't mean this as a hey, this is an opportunity for your Panthers, but if they don't look decisively better than the Jets, it's going to be a long season. You know what I mean?
I know that's I'm sure that all Panthers fans are kind of not quite sure. They're kind of like biting their fingernails in anticipation of what might perchance happen. Of course, and Darnold's last time that we saw him in the third preseason game, he looked pretty decent, 160 something yards in about a half of a time, 2 touchdowns. The offense was able to move the ball pretty well. So that's a feather in his cap, right? For what he could potentially bring week 1 against the Jets, the Carl Lawson-less Jets, yeah. Right? Who's the linebacker they let? Jared Davis, I believe, as well, hurt. So they've got some issues on defense. This is a home game for Carolina. So yeah, I hope as a fan that, they show up for that game and they show up pretty well. I mean, they're favored by 5 points now, is what I learned, which is kind of surprising. The line's kind of going up in their favor. So, that's interesting, but yeah, the Panthers, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Let's just put it that way.
I have 2 questions for both of you guys. First, a statement. The one line that looks wacky to me is, I think it's the Niners at Detroit. Is that right?
And, they're at Detroit.
And it's only a touchdown. It's only a touchdown. And, Detroit's I saw somebody, I'm not a betting guy, but I saw somebody betting the under of Detroit at 3.5 wins. And if Detroit's really that bad, and San Fran is healthy, that should be pretty big.
San Francisco should win that game, but you know what? Detroit, sometimes when Detroit has their good games, we've seen it before on Thanksgiving, right? It's a big game. There's a lot of eyes on that game. They tend to play better, and they tend to play better at home. Granted, now we've got Jared Goff, and we're going to find out how Jared Goff is going to do without his buddy, Sean McVay, as play caller. So that will be interesting to see exactly how effective and productive Goff could be. Goff was actually one of the better quarterbacks in the entire league last year in first down passes on third down. Only Justin Herbert had more, which is an interesting stat. But that also might just mean that he has a lot of passes on third down attempts, right? But still, he was able to convert. So that's a feather in his cap. But Detroit just has so many questions, and they released Rashad Perriman. So, I mean, who are they going to have besides Hawkinson? And DeAndre Swift is kind of banged up. So you've got Jamal Williams in there. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, from what we understand, is likely the starting slot receiver, but he's a rookie, right? So we got to, take that one step at a time. And Detroit will either show up and do something for their fans or completely just not. and struggle and perhaps get blown out by a San Francisco team that a lot of people think is going to be one of the turnaround stories of the year,
Yeah.
with even looking at a potential playoff or even Super Bowl aspirations in San Francisco. So that'll be an interesting game to see if which Detroit team shows up and also which San Francisco team shows up.
Oh yeah. And if Tyrell is your starting receiver, then your best receiver, nothing gets Tyrell. But Rhys, what do you have? What are you thinking on this?
I was thinking that Jared Goff's probably going to throw the ball 45 times. It's going to, when they're going to be behind. So Hawkinson's probably going to get 10 or 11 targets at least. But even though the 49ers do have one of the best coverage linebackers in Fred Warner, and then outside, and Swift's banged up, Jamal Williams is probably going to get quite a few targets as well, at least for a running back. And then that leaves Tyrell, Amon St. Brown, and whoever else wants to try to catch passes and it's almost like a preseason game for these Lions wide receivers.
Oh yeah, it's rough. So here's my question. Let me come back to it. And I'll start with you, Rhys, and then Jeff. How long, there were two big quarterback battles, really three, but Mac Jones, Cam Newton got settled. But how long of a leash does Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston have?
Jameis Winston probably has a 3 to 4 game leash. It also would depend on their schedule, because if you're not throwing up good games against like the Saints, Bears, Rams, if you're not throwing up good games against them, it's understandable versus like the Jets.
Yeah. So how about Teddy, your boys?
Teddy, I'd say probably 6 games, just because Teddy's kind of the hopeful. Maybe we can get him into the playoffs this year. And I do feel like the Broncos either want to go to the playoffs or want to have the number 1 overall pick.
They won't, because Lions are bad.
Jeff, the Texans.
Jeff, how long of a leash do you think those two quarterbacks? And I say it because there's a lot of fantasy drafts this weekend. And if you have, Jameis has fantasy upside. Teddy has fantasy upside with those receivers. How confident? How much leash?
Well, looking at the Saints schedule, Jameis has the Packers, and what should have been a home game is now not. It's a neutral game in Jacksonville, so they lose out on that. Then they go on the road and play Carolina, which is anyone's guess who might win that. It's a divisional game. And then they are on the road again at New England. And, who knows with that? The Saints are a tough team, but at the same time, New England is not a slouch, especially at home, right? So, and finally, that week 4, they have a game against the Giants. And I think that's their first home game, which is most likely going to be, that's October. So there's a whole month of football that they're not playing at home, all because of the situation with Hurricane Ida and that situation down there in southeastern Louisiana. Right. So, it's possible that Winston could be 1-3, 2-2. I agree with you, Rhys. I think that he probably does have like 3 or 4 games of a leash. If he's really pretty bad, I can see them using Taysom Hill a little bit more throughout the game, and then maybe eventually on a Wednesday news break, we find out that Taysom's going to start the coming week, right? So that's entirely possible. That could happen. He talked about Bridgewater. Denver has a really good schedule their first couple games with the at New York. That's probably their toughest game. At New York Giants, followed by at home versus then they're on the road again at Jacksonville, and then they're home versus the Jets, and then home versus the Ravens. But those 3 games, they could be 3-0. Jacksonville won 1 game last year. So I don't know. I think Bridgewater, and the fact is that Denver has looked absolutely stunning in the preseason, especially on defense. They've just been making plays, and if that continues, look out. Denver could be one of those surprise teams that comes out of nowhere. Granted, they're going to have to deal with the Chiefs in their division, but when 7 teams make the playoffs, it's entirely possible, right? So, what else?
Okay. So you mentioned the 49ers being a possible Super Bowl team, but who else do you think has a decent shot of making it there?
I mean, as like a dark horse type of team.
Yes.
Maybe Tennessee. Maybe Tennessee. Now here, Tennessee won 11 games last year, despite finishing 32nd in the league in third down conversions allowed. I mean, that's insane. How did they do that? Offense, that's how. And then they added Julio Jones. So Julio Jones, AJ Brown, if they can stay healthy, boy, those are two outstanding receivers. But again, if they can stay healthy, and then of course their top player, Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill is just kind of along for the ride. And I mean, he's good, like any good quarterback is. That we don't necessarily look at him like that, but he is, right. And he's had better stats. I've seen it, better stats than Patrick Mahomes over uh, I forget how many consecutive games. If you look at the two, Tannehill's better than Mahomes in this and this and this and this, right? So that's kind of shocking and alarming. But Tennessee has a chance. I mean, if their defense can kind of come through, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing is what Tennessee's defense can do. If their defense improves, I think that team could go someplace. So Tennessee is kind of a dark horse there for me. I like San Francisco. Washington, perhaps, if they can win the division. They've got a really good defense that they are just really starting to kind of get that swagger that defenses have. So I like that. If Antonio Gibson can improve upon last year, which was already strong, that's great. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think, is a big upgrade over what they had last year. Yeah. So yeah, there's a possibility that Washington could be in the mix as well. And if they can beat out Dallas for the division, I don't think Philadelphia or the Giants really are any kind of competition. I think it comes down to Dallas and Washington, and Washington, in my opinion, has the upper hand. They win the division, they get a home game in the playoffs. You never know. Strong defense in the playoffs. That's like a strong pitching core in baseball. Those are the teams that win, and they win surprisingly sometimes. I could see Washington winning, and then look at that, they won again. And now they have to maybe face, who knows, the Rams or something, which they could win. So yeah, Washington's a dark horse team. I could see them doing some things.
So I'm going to make a blanket statement. You guys tell me how wrong I am. Okay. The AFC will be more difficult to get a dark horse through because there's too many good teams. And so it'll be hard, where the NFC is top heavy, with the Bucks, the Packers, and you could throw Seattle, San Fran, the Rams. AFC, you have Chargers, Chiefs, Bills, New England's decent. You have Pittsburgh, Baltimore, the Browns, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, Indianapolis doesn't have a prayer. Like everybody's thinking Indianapolis. I mean, Tennessee should be able to sleepwalk through that division.
No, that's a great call. The AFC is loaded. So I think that you could get more of a dark horse on the NFC side rather than the AFC side, because you're going to be beating each other up.
Yeah,
absolutely. I love that. Great take.
Yeah, I just meant, even New England, right? I like New England. They had 8 starters that opted out last year, and they spent in free agency. Mac Jones looks good. But what are the chances of them winning 11, 12 games? I think it's pretty low, because even Miami's decent, you know?
Yeah.
And
Buffalo, Miami, New England. Yeah. 2 of those teams, maybe even 3, could potentially get a playoff berth. But I mean, it's going to come down to that last week for sure in the AFC, just to find out who gets in and which great team is not going to host a playoff game, but they're going to be a really tough out against an AFC divisional winner. Like, I don't know, maybe they're all strong. It's kind of, you can't really minimize a division winner, right? So, but I can see one of these wild card teams totally making a play and attempting to dethrone, the top seed or not necessarily the top seed, but a division winner.
The Saints are down. What do you think, Rhys?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right that the AFC is a lot more loaded. But the reason why they're a lot more loaded is because all the NFC quarterbacks are getting a lot more up there in age versus the AFC, which is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, all the young guys. And NFC's out here fending for themselves with Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady.
Yep.
And Breeze retired, right? That's
Yes.
a good thought there,
Right.
Breeze, because the New Orleans, who was a top end team with Breeze, and now Michael Thomas is missing half the season. We kind of look at them cross-eyed, thinking you're not going to make the playoffs, Sean Payton. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's entirely possible. That's a good point about age too. Look at even the AFC East.
Yeah.
Everyone's under 25, I think. Tua, Mac Jones, Josh Allen, and what team am I missing?
Wilson, Jets.
Oh yeah, Zach Wilson, right? So yeah, they're like 24, 25 might be the oldest quarterback in that entire division, which that says a lot for that the AFC East in the future.
Yeah, Josh Allen.
But you also mentioned those age. Outside of Big Ben, there's no one in the AFC North that's that old, and in the AFC South, it's only Carson Wentz and Ryan Tannehill that are
Tyrod, but
yeah, he's iffy, right?
Yeah. Might be Davis Mills by the end of the
first week.
They're playing Jacksonville, so yeah.
But even the Broncos, Broncos have the only, Carr is what?
30 probably.
30, something like that. Teddy's
30. Same draft class.
And then you have Mahomes, who's pretty young. You have Herbert, who's really young.
Yeah.
The AFC is loaded, and it's just one of those things.
So talking about your Panthers here, how do you see the roles of Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore playing out? Especially,
go ahead.
What were you saying?
I was going to say, and Terrace Marshall.
Yeah, we got to put in Terrace Marshall too, but I'll just start with DJ Moore. Last year he had the highest, yards per target average, 13.5 or 13.6, something like that. I'm trying to remember my math. Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson were much lower. And Moore had more yards. He had 18 yards per catch, which is kind of unlike him in terms of the yardage and the high amount per catch in terms of his career averages. So that was a little bit of a shock. And there was some thought process that, well, shoot, maybe he's their deeper guy, right? The Panthers do a lot of shallow cross, horizontal attacking type of plays. That's what Joe Brady really likes to employ. And they've used Moore as kind of more of like the deep threat. They don't really use the tight end. Heck, the tight end only had 27 catches last year combined for Carolina. So that's another story. We can talk about that too as well, because I think that's going to go up this year. I can see Terrace Marshall playing that big slot role, and he can be played all over the field, not just the slot. He can line up out. And I think that's going to free up DJ Moore to have more intermediate type of routes. And he won't necessarily have that 18.1 yards per catch. I can see that dropping down to like 13 or 14, believe it or not. He might have more catches as a result. And, it'll just be a different season than what we saw last year. And keep in mind, Moore has just 10 touchdowns in 3 years with the Panthers in his career. So he's not necessarily one to score. When he does score, it seems like they're longer scores. He's not like a red zone guy. And I think that I would not be surprised if Terrace Marshall outscores either Anderson or Moore in terms of touchdowns. And then you throw Dan Arnold into the mix here as well. Jeff, you got a twinkle in your eye, I'm sure. Arnold at 6'6", 222 pounds, something like that. It's not your ordinary average tight end. He's more of a bigger wide receiver, and he'll be used in the red zone. We didn't really see it in the preseason, but in games in training camp and in practice, I've only heard that Arnold was targeted and caught touchdowns, in the end zone. So I think that we might be a little bit surprised with him. He's a little bit of a sleeper for the Panthers offense. And we already know Terrace Marshall's strong. He's been able to do a lot. In fact, he led the entire preseason with 180, 181, 182 yards receiving, which is impressive. He's got the ability to do it all. 23 touchdowns in 19 games at LSU, and that's with or without Joe Burrow. He's shown that he can do both. He already has that that LSU wide receiver fraternity badge. He's earned that, and I think we're all going to be kind of pleased and excited to see what Terrace Marshall does. He definitely has the potential, and we know that the Panthers offense has the potential to make him someone who could be productive, because we saw it last year with Curtis Samuel and with Moore and Anderson. So I don't think that Anderson is going to have those 95 catches. He's not going to have that. One, Christian McCaffrey is coming back, so everyone's going to have a little bit less of that offensive pie, because McCaffrey is going to have some, right? He's going to have a lot. Anderson, so yeah, I think his career year was last year, and if you're drafting him to be the same type of player as last year, I think you're going to be a little bit mistaken, and sorry for that. I not only because of McCaffrey's return, but also with Terrace Marshall's presence. So I'm not as high on Anderson as some people are, and the reason why is because of the reasons I just gave: the McCaffrey and Marshall emergence, and McCaffrey's return, and Sam Darnold. We just don't quite know yet with him. There's a lot of questions, and we're going to find out for sure against the Jets, and then they have the Saints, both home games, and then they go on the road to Houston. I mean, a winnable game. So I think we're going to know a lot by week 3 on just how good that Panthers offense can be with their receivers, with McCaffrey's return. So looking forward to it.
2 things. I think that Darnold's a much better fit for that offense than Teddy was. And, everybody in preseason training camp were like, PJ Walker this, PJ Walker that. And preseason showed us just how much better Darnold was. And he squashed all of that talk. I mean, when Darnold's on, he's a, top 10, top 12 quarterback. Rhys is looking at me like I'm crazy talk here, but I mean, we've only seen him in the Jets with Adam Gase. I mean, look what happened when Tannehill got out from underneath Gase.
Yep.
And so, Rhys, am I saying that he's going to finish there? No, I'm just saying he can flash that Cousins Tannehill level of quarterback play, which is right in that quarterback 10, quarterback 13, 14 range. Is that fair?
One thing that we haven't talked about really yet is Seattle and Russell Wilson. I kind of want to get your opinion on him. Last year, weeks 1 through 9, Russell Wilson was the number 1 fantasy quarterback. And week 10 through 17 to end the year, he was quarterback 21. So, and obviously he wasn't quarterback. I think during that time, let's see if I recall. Well, I mean, there were some injuries, but I think a lot of it was just Seattle was just struggling offensively. Maybe you can kind of share a little bit more light, Rhys or Jeff, on what exactly happened there. I mean, they've got DK Metcalf, they've got Tyler Lockett. What happened at the end of the year, and will they get that winning, let Russ cook attitude back for 2021? What's your thoughts there? Because they got a new offensive coordinator too.
Yeah, I'll let Rhys take a swing before he'll
right.
do such a good job. I'll just remain quiet.
Pete Carroll's too stubborn and set in his ways to let Russ cook too much. But I do feel like they are a much better team when the ball is in Russell Wilson's hand versus Chris Carson. Nothing against Chris Carson, but Russell Wilson is a top 5 quarterback, while Chris Carson, so maybe top 20 running back.
Yeah, maybe a little higher than that, but you're right, Rhys. In the amount, Jeff, I'm just saying, throwing this out there. I very much expect the conservative game plan, especially the way they're talking up Penny. They carry 5 running backs on their active roster. You don't do that if you're going to let Russ cook. What I mean? You don't let David Moore, and I know your Panthers cut him too, but what I'm saying? Like, this is setting up as that the one guy on that offense I like more than most people do is Everett. Because they brought in Shane Waldron from the Rams. He signs Everett on a 1-year deal, follows his dude up there, And we've seen small flashes where Russell Wilson's made Will Disley a top 5, top 6 tight end. And I think he's athletic, he's decent, especially if he gets that red zone. But I think Rhys is 100% right. Pete Carroll is old school. Let's play smash mouth. And part of that, Rhys, is I think he likes control. He likes to be able to hand it off and, okay, we got 4 yards. All right, we got 3. Now we're sitting there at 3rd and 3. That sort of thing. Jeff, how far off do you think we are?
No, I think you're pretty good. That's a pretty good assessment. And I would say that Pete Carroll is a big factor in that. Chris Carson and his health now that he's kind of returning to form also suggests that they're going to run the ball fairly heavily. You mentioned 5 running backs on their roster, which that suggests that running the ball is going to be common. But here's the thing, though, with their division. I mean, it's a tough division, arguably the hardest division in all of football. There's going to be close games. There just will. And when there's close games and Russell Wilson is on the field, he's going to do whatever he can to make that happen. I can see Seattle being kind of like perhaps like a ground controlled type of offense at first, like a first half type of team. And then the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, they have to turn it on. And I can see Russell Wilson just kind of doing his magic because that's what he does. It's amazing. It really is to watch him play. And how many times have we seen him with the ball in his hands win the game for Seattle? Whether it's a field goal, a touchdown, whatever it might be. Wilson has that it factor, that it ability. And I think we're still going to see that. Whether he's the top quarterback, no, I don't think he will be, but I also don't think he's going to be the 21st quarterback either. The truth is somewhere in between. I just like watching him play. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Seattle can do in a really tough NFC West with the Cardinals, the Rams, and the 49ers in addition to Seattle. I mean, take your pick. I don't even know who's going to win the division.
That's where I was going to go. But Rhys, what you got?
I noticed that none of us brought up the fact that Seattle's offensive line is not very good at all in a division where you have Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd on one team, Nick Bosa, and the entire 49ers defense line that's really good.
And JJ Watt.
Arizona brought in Watt and Jones, as you just said.
Yeah.
And Wilson's going to be running for his life in that division, and Carson is not going to be as effective going up against all those guys.
Yep.
So let me pitch
Good
this
points.
to you guys. Who do you think is top of that division, Rhys, and who's at the bottom of that division?
Rams at the top, Cardinals at the bottom.
How about you, Jeff?
Niners at the top, and either Cardinals or Seahawks at the bottom.
Yeah. I just meant though it's going to be tough. And so I'd rather, instead
The bottom is like 7 wins or 8 wins.
Yeah. So
that's the bottom. That's the
Kingsbury.
bottom.
Yeah. All right. This is just me being around for a long time. Kingsbury wins 6 games or less, maybe 7 or less. He could be on the way out. I mean,
yeah.
He's had a flashy offense, but I don't know if there's been too much proof in that pudding.
Hey, can we talk about Cincinnati a little bit and Ja'Marr Chase?
Yes.
I don't know if he was on your sheet here or not, but any concern from you, either of you, about Ja'Marr Chase and his Chuck Knobloch disease, the yips, whatever you want to call it, right? Where he can't catch the ball. Maybe Jerry Jeudy, right? Last year, Jeudy kind of had the same type of issues. And we saw it more after Cortland Sutton hurt his knee. He's out for the year. So all this pressure, right, is now on Jeudy to deliver. And he kind of struggled a little bit at first. And I can kind of see that with Ja'Marr Chase. Cincinnati does not need him. I don't see him as the alpha type of receiver yet. I don't. Perhaps, though, in his mind, though, he's thinking, I better perform. I'm Ja'Marr Chase. Look what I did in LSU, right? This is me. I was picked in the top 10. So maybe there's a little bit of pressure on him. I'm a little bit skittish on him as a fantasy producer this year, especially early on. And we kind of tend to see that, right? McLaurin a little bit struggled. Actually, McLaurin was really good early, but AJ Brown, it took him a little while. Thinking back, yeah, Keenan Allen, even going back further, kind of struggled a little bit as a rookie. It took him some time to get going. Justin Jefferson, even a little bit of time to get going, but then he did. Um,
Lamb.
are we
Lamb
going to
last
are we
year.
going to see the same type of thing from Jamar Chase? And is he ever going to reach that gear where he becomes easily startable type of Justin Jefferson type of wide receiver?
If I'm worried about him, I'm more worried about separation than I am his hands. Because Judy's going to be able to separate in the phone booth, and that stuff corrects itself over time. He didn't play last year. Let's give Chase a little bit of a break on not playing for a year and being rusty. And I think we had a guest on recently, that Rhys, that told us about how top 6 drafted wide receivers, top 6 picks in the draft, are almost undefeated for having great seasons and careers. The worst one was Corey Davis, who arguably still isn't that bad of a floor. And so I give him the benefit of the doubt. And all I'm saying is, if I'm watching anything, I'm worried less about his hands. And I'm worried. I mean, Jefferson had some drops early last year. If I'm worried more about watching how he separates. Because T. Higgins can be an alpha. You're right. Auden Tate is decent. Tyler Boyd is decent. Mixon, even Chris Evans and Pirine in the backfield. I mean, that offense should put up points. Rhys, what are you thinking?
Jamar, drops happen. Jamar Chase will probably put it back together. And if Joe Burrow and him have the connection that they did back in college, I have no concerns about Chase.
That's true. That's one thing that we haven't seen yet, really, is Burrow and Chase together and their chemistry. That's an excellent point. And it's entirely possible that he has a boom in week 1 type of performance against Minnesota, also, who doesn't necessarily have the greatest secondary. So it's possible. And if it doesn't, then then maybe we reweigh this a little bit. But for right now, I like the call of him being able to overcome this.
Yeah. But even if we're talking about connections, Joe Brady, Terrace Marshall, that same connection. Everybody talks about cronyism, but if you put me in a position like Joe Brady or Burrow and my backside's on the line, I'm going to surround myself with people I know that can produce or I'm comfortable with. And we criticize
Tua as well, and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Which brings up another interesting storyline is Miami versus New England. We got the Bama Bowl at quarterback.
And Flores. And Flores is the next Patriots coach.
Yes, that's right. And so there's that too. That's an interesting week 1 battle.
That's just one that, in Minnesota, all the way back to when they had Ronnie Williams running the Wildcat and upset him. I don't know if you remember that. And, Miami's kind of had New England's number throughout the years.
That's right.
At least one game a year. But we'll find out whether Mac Jones. I'm one of those people that likes Mac Jones for the long haul. I just think people are getting way too excited in the short term.
Well, you probably saw the stat where Mac Jones had 8 possessions in the preseason. All 8 of those possessions resulted in a touchdown or a field goal. You probably saw that. And to me, that says a lot. That says an awful lot. And for his ability to do that and his ability to dethrone Cam Newton, if you want to say that, so early on, I think is a feather in his cap. And I'm not saying he's going to be Justin Herbert this year, but he could. If there's anyone who could, Mac Jones is on a short list of players who could, because we weren't thinking this out of Justin Herbert this past year. I liked him out of Oregon. I was high on him. I did not see him, having 31 touchdown passes, right?
Right.
I didn't see him having the type of year that he did, but we've been surprised before. I definitely think, though, that New England's offense, particularly their fantasy players, all kind of get a bump with Mac Jones at quarterback rather than Cam Newton, because Cam struggled with the touchdown passes. He struggled just passing downfield at times. Of course, he's this great rushing presence, and that's fine, but you got to get there. You have to get to the 20. to be able to utilize those skills and talents in a sense. And he kind of struggled with that. And we saw it in his low touchdown numbers, passing touchdown numbers. Can I change gears real quick again? I'm like leading this. I don't mean to.
You're good.
What are your thoughts on Kyle Pitts? Another like fantasy conundrum, I guess. I mean, he's the ultimate risk reward, it seems. I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts on him early on in his career, halfway through the year, whatever, what have you. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to come up to speed, to be a fantasy relevant type of player. And some people think he's going to be on the gas from week 1. So I'm curious what you think.
I'm not thinking that he's going to be a great player. I'm not buying him at current price, but the Falcons are going to throw the ball 600 plus times this year. Calvin Ridley's going to command 150 of them. Russell Gage maybe will be able to command 100 of them. But what happens to the other 350? Kyle Pitts is in an easy position to command 100 of those. And if he does, and if he can show his talent in the NFL, he could have a really good year. But he could also have a really bad year, as you were saying, with the boom and bust. And there's mismatches in the division that he can exploit because Carolina does not have a good tight end weapon, and a lot of people on their schedule do not. But he also has to get up to speed with the offense. So I'm liking him, just not at current cost.
So let me tell you this. I'm going to throw out a number. I'm just out to see my pants. For him to live up to that tight end 4 ADP, tight end 3 some places, he's got to have like 80 catches, 800 yards, 8 touchdowns. And I'm not seeing that. I mean,
it's hard to do even as a rookie wide receiver, let alone a tight end who has to know all of the. I mean, he's already being asked to do so much. I mean, he has to know the rushing plays, the blocking schemes. He has to know all of the routes, the pass protections, like for each different personnel that he's out there for. He's got to know that, and that's a lot to ask of a rookie tight end. And shoot, I mean, he's sort of struggled a little bit in that area with Florida. So, I mean, I just think it's going to take a little bit of time. And could we see him do wonderful things week 1, week 2, perhaps? Yeah, that's possible. Just like we saw Hawkinson do as a rookie, his week 1, which we were all like, oh my gosh, this guy. And then he's like, that was like his best game of the season, right? So, I mean, Atlanta's got Philadelphia week 1, then they're at Tampa, tough game, but then they're at the Giants. Then they're home versus Washington. It's a roller coaster up and down. We're going to see what's going to happen here. And then the Jets, it literally is a roller coaster. So yeah, I'm with you though. If he can, and they definitely have the space to occupy him, right? Because essentially he's Julio Jones's replacement. If you think of it that way, then he could in fact produce and be productive, but there's still that if, and just the fact that, yeah, he's going to have to, like you said, Jeff, 80 catches, 800 yards, 8 touchdowns in order to come close to that ADP spot where he's at. And it just doesn't make logical sense to draft him. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Plus, let's take it a step further. He's not going to be on the field every down because Hayden Hurst is going to be on there and some of the blocking downs.
True. Yeah.
And so, Arthur Smith could run some 12 personnel with 2 receivers with, Julio and Gage and 2 tight ends. But even if you're splitting that up a little bit, it just chips away. And so, anyway, Rhys, what do you think? You think I'm off base on this?
And Arthur Smith does not have a history of running 12 personnel, even though because he didn't really have the players to do that in Tennessee, because you're not going to run Anthony Ferguson on the field as much versus whoever else, maybe a fullback for Derrick Henry. But he does have the best weapons to run 12 personnel arguably in the league outside of New England. So he could, but I don't think he will. And also, Kyle Pitts does have an injury history, if I remember right. And if that's the case, he could see an injury like quite a few rookie tight ends have.
I
Yeah.
will tell you this. If I'm defending the Falcons, you're doubling Ridley and you're going to make sure Pitts can't beat you. And you're saying, okay, Mike Davis, Hayden Hurst, and Russell Gage, why don't you all beat us?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
it
Like,
could.
I just don't. I give these defensive coordinators way too much credit. Just like I think. Oh, go ahead.
If one of Ridley or Pitts gets hurt, I think the team just struggles.
Yeah.
Because then everyone's going to know Ridley's going to get the ball, or if Ridley's out, then everyone's going to know Pitts is going to get the ball, and it's going to be really difficult to try to confuse your defense and run plays that can surprise people, surprise teams. So, yeah, I could see that being a problem if it happens.
I can't believe Philly's an underdog against the Falcons. Not that I think Philly's very good, but I mean, Falcons could be a bottom 5 team in the league very easily.
Yeah, they could.
They
could.
I want to point out that they were the number 4 draft picks this past year, so they were a bottom 5 team.
They were,
and they got worse. I mean, it's not like they got better, other than coaching.
They even tried not to win, and they lost.
Yeah,
right. To get that Detroit game.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh man. What else? One wide receiver that I am kind of trying to find myself taking in a lot of different leagues, and I'm pretty much done drafting my leagues, is Elijah Moore. I really like him with the Jets. I like his ability to, be that big presence downfield, and the ability to make contested catches. That's something that Jets don't have really outside of Corey Davis, and even Davis sort of struggles with that. I could see him being kind of like an AJ Brown type of player, come like week 9 or 10, and all of a sudden he's like the man in New York. I'm curious what you guys think of Elijah Moore. And it's also something that JC Horn, Panthers corner, top corner in the draft, was saying was one of the hardest, toughest receivers that he ever had to face. And he's faced a lot, right? Yeah. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, all these SEC players. He said Elijah Moore, also SEC, Ole Miss, was one of the toughest ones. In addition to Kyle Pitts, he also said as well. But, stuff like that, I have a kind of mental memory on that. I'm like, okay, yeah. Elijah Moore, and just watching his film, I mean, he just looks strong. I don't want to say I'm in over my head on Elijah Moore. I just like his potential, and perhaps Zach Wilson can get him there.
Possibly. But we heard that last year. I forgot what the DB from Wisconsin said that about, from Nebraska said that about Quintez Cephas, best receiver I played against. Not these Ohio State guys, but Cephas, and he's buried on a bad team. He can't get past.
I don't think I heard that one.
Yeah, I forget who's the rookie cornerback last year from Nebraska. Long last name, with the name like T. Tiller. I can say somebody has a long last name, but anyway, I prefer for this year. I prefer Callaway to look. Rhys give me the side eye too.
Which Callaway are you referring to?
Marquez Callaway,
the one that's on a roster. The one for KC didn't make it, but Marquez. Just because he's flash, he looks like Marquez Colston to me, and I'd rather have him this season, especially because Mike Thomas is gone for at least the first half of the season. I just don't like the combination of rookie receiver, rookie quarterback on a team without a decent running back other than a rookie, and you're in a division with at least 2 very good defenses in New England and Miami. I mean, I like him as a dynasty guy. I really like Elijah Moore as a dynasty guy. I'm just not so sure I like him this year.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll definitely see.
I will say I'm biased against rookie receivers as a whole. It's so hard, and tight ends as well. I just think it's hard. Look at all the guys that just flopped. I mean, whether it's Rager up in Philly or what I'm saying? All these guys are just tough. And then you can always throw Justin Jefferson back in my face, and I'm okay with that. But I just meant it's just hard, right? It's really hard for these rookies to come in. They need so much to go right
Mhm.
to hit it.
If you had to pick a rookie between just this group, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall, which one of those four do you think is going to be most friendly in terms of fantasy production
This year or Dynasty?
this year, just this year?
Rhys, you want to take that or you want me to go for it?
I'll go for Devontae Smith just because Jalen Hurts is going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. And I don't see Goff and Ertz commanding that big of a target share. And if someone's going to have to catch passes for that, Devontae Smith has shown he's the most talented wide receiver that we've probably seen in the past 5 years, not named Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I was just going to say Waddle because I was looking at the quarterbacks of those. Yeah, right. I was trying to marry that up. I like Darnold, but I like Tua a little more. And Jeff, I have this sneaky suspicion that we're sleeping on Tua if he can stay healthy. I mean, he's got Parker, Fuller, Waddle, Gesicki.
Yeah. He looked good in the preseason. He looked darn good, sharp, accurate, especially to his tight ends downfield. I'm with you there. I think that Tua has it, especially if Miami and they put all this to bed about Deshaun Watson. I don't think Watson is going anywhere anytime soon right now. I just don't. And I think once Tua kind of realizes that and he gets the go ahead from the coach, maybe gets a couple wins. I think that the tide could turn in terms of his rise up the rankings, I guess, if you will, for Tua.
Yeah, because Buffalo doesn't have very good defense. Jets don't have very good defense. I mean, Buffalo's got a great offense. Do you disagree with their defense?
I think they have one of the better defenses. Yeah, I do.
How'd they finish last year?
Middle of the pack.
Yeah. See, I think they're in the 18 to 25 range defense.
I would say higher than that, but hey, that's just my opinion. Plus, you've got a defensive minded coach as well, which is also a plus. And they have good players. They have good linebacking crew, good defensive line, good secondary. Not great, but good, right? So they make their plays. And offensively, though, yeah, they're a juggernaut, and that may be why the defense plays well.
Yeah, but also I think it's because McDermott's such a defensive guy. They've invested resources on the offensive side more than defense, thinking that he's going to help coach it up more. Because you look at where they spent, even Emmanuel Sanders, or of course we all would say Diggs, but they even sign in Breida as depth. I like that signing for Buffalo. Mitchell Trubisky was money that they probably didn't have. I mean, how big of an upgrade is Trubisky over Matt Barkley?
I think Trubisky is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the entire league, and people laugh at me. I'm like, well, here's a guy who has 18 games of multiple touchdowns in his career. How many backups can even say they have 18 touchdowns?
Yeah, I agree with that. I was just saying if Josh Allen's hurt, they're probably struggling anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
That's all I was getting at. But you're right. There's only 6 or 8 good backup quarterbacks in the league, and that's including the Chase Daniels, Colt McCoys of the world. That's not including Miami has one of the middle of the road or higher with Jacoby Brissett. But you look at Dallas with Cooper Rush, or
they just signed Will Grier.
Yeah, Raiders with Peterman, or the Chiefs with Henney.
Yeah.
I was like, at least Colt McCoy was an average starter, maybe below average, but long term. Chase Daniel, I tell
you, one guy that really impressed me in the preseason was Tyler Huntley on Baltimore. He looked really good running that offense. Same type of offense that Vic runs, or Vic. Hello, Vic. I said Vic. That
Lamar.
Of course, I didn't mean that. Lamar Jackson. Same type of offense that Lamar runs. He looked sharp. I have a feeling if Lamar misses some time, God forbid, I think Huntley could do some damage as a quarterback.
Yeah, they cut McSorley. But I was just saying that a lot of those teams are. Look at Seattle. You talked about Russ. He's got Geno Smith behind him. If there was ever a situation that Cam Newton should go to, I would say Seattle.
Oof.
I mean, because Geno's nothing against Geno Smith personally.
You can take Greg Olson's old apartment.
Oh yeah, but you know what I mean. No, these teams that are contenders, it's rough. I mean, Matt Stafford has John Wolford behind him. Who's
the Cleveland backup? I don't even know.
It's
right
Case
now.
Keenum. It's Case Keenum.
Keenum, that's it. Yeah.
Rhys,
Green Bay.
Yeah, Jordan Love.
So many questions, so many. And you know what? Here's the thing. We're going to run into that, whether it's a COVID or if it's a concussion or if it's an ankle, a calf, a hammy, a groin, shoulder, which we see from quarterbacks often. We're going to run into it, and someone's going to, show out, or they're going to not. And we're going to wind up exploiting that most likely, but that's why we play.
Oh yeah.
I don't think we play for them to get injured, though.
No.
I'm glad he's busting your chops like he busts mine.
I don't bust his like I bust yours. I don't do it every day.
No, I know. Like I'm easy pickings. So as we close, Jeff, who are your if you were thinking AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game, who are you thinking?
In the AFC?
And NFC. Who's
the NFC? All right, I guess we'll start with NFC. I mean, it's really difficult not to think that Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, with everything that they're bringing back this year, can't do it again. So I kind of like Tampa and San Francisco, actually, in the NFC. And the AFC, Buffalo, KC. Let's bring it. I really like to see that. I think that I think Buffalo has an opportunity to be the top dog in the AFC, but they're going to have to go through KC to do it. And they play them week 5 in Kansas City, which could be an interesting type of battle for not just the playoff spot, number 1 seed perhaps, but also bragging rights for what could be a visit in the AFC Championship. So yeah, that's my pick. I'll say Buffalo, KC, and I'll say San Francisco and Tampa.
How about you, Rhys?
I was thinking Tampa, LA Rams, just because I don't trust the Packers or the Cowboys. I'm going with Rams just because I trust Matthew Stafford's going to be a major upgrade over Jared Goff and all the pieces they have around their quarterback to let them succeed. And then it's hard to go against Kansas City. The one thing I don't trust for Buffalo is their defense. So
I'm a bad influence.
I could have told you that.
Who else do you like there?
Titans, probably. Just because I like all the additions they brought in with Caleb Farley, Bud Dupree, and even Mike Vrabel being a defensive-minded coach. Hopefully get that back on track. But I like the Titans' defense this year, and their offense is going to steamroll opponents.
I'll go with an upset for most. I'll take Buffalo and Baltimore.
Okay, interesting.
Used to.
I don't know, but they're all right. The one thing going for KC is they bolstered their O-line. You got to give them credit.
They did.
As teams pay their quarterbacks, and you can invest in the defense because you pay your quarterbacks, year 2, year 3, it's hard to keep it going, and that's more. Plus, it's a tough division. I mean, and it's just one of those that I just have a gut feeling that
I could see Green Bay like not running the table, but winning their division, 12, 13 games or so, hosting the playoffs, perhaps beating a team, in the playoffs at home, right? Lambeau Field's cold. Imagine Trey Lance coming to Lambeau Field for the first time. I don't think they play each. Yeah, they do. Week 3, they play each other. It's in San Francisco though. But Trey Lance going to Lambeau Field in the playoffs, having to beat Green Bay, that just sounds like a tough game. Provided Trey Lance is your quarterback, I honestly think he will be. But I could see Green Bay trying to do something, a little bit of danger from them, but beating Tom Brady though, and the Bucs, that's just. I don't know. And the only thing I can think of is if somehow, some way, the wheels fall off of Brady, who knows, a concussion or maybe he gets COVID for whatever reason and he's out for 2 weeks or who knows what. That I could see that Tampa could really kind of struggle. But who's Tampa's backup?
It's Kyle Trask. They've cut Gabbard. And so
Yes.
it's Kyle Trask, but Tampa is 100% vaccinated. At least it came out this week. And so can they get COVID? Sure. But the teams that I worry about are the ones where they have key players that aren't vaccinated. It pops up on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And we find out about it on a Sunday that, oh, that player is not going to play because they're quarantined.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Who's your NFC pick, Ted? You never told us that.
I'll take Tampa Bay. I mean, I think it's hard not to, right? And even the small pieces, like them keeping everybody together, plus adding a guy like Gio Bernard is a plus to me because I don't like their running backs at all. I'm not going Green Bay. I think Rodgers was super efficient last year. Not Seattle.
You do Cowboys?
No.
Washington?
No. Yeah. Washington versus San Fran is the tough one in my head. Because it's all about how well does Fitzy play, right? Because I love Rivera as a coach. And how well does Fitzy play? Because that's a solid team. They added Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas emerged. Solid team in a bad division. But it's all on Fitzy, right? It's all on the beard and the chest hair hanging out and being him. And you know what I'm saying.
We'll find out if he's a second half quarterback this year.
Oh yeah. Rhys, you got any other questions?
So you mentioned Lance taking over by the playoffs. So when do you think he will actually take over for Garoppolo?
Before week 8. Definitely before week 8, perhaps sooner. It also depends on how well Garoppolo does. I mean, if San Francisco, let's just take a look at their schedule here. San Francisco has Detroit at Philadelphia, and then they're at home versus Green Bay, Seattle, and Arizona. So they have a little division string there, and then they have their bye. If some way Garoppolo loses to Detroit or Philadelphia, I think there's a huge I don't know what the word would be.
Opportunity,
right? Yeah, exactly. To I was gonna say outroar from the fans to get Trey Lance in there. So if Garoppolo struggles, I can see him going in there, but I just think it's going to be more of a midseason type of thing with him, with Lance, and eventually I think that he's going to be the reason why the team does so well.
Yeah, he's probably going to be 4-1 through that stretch, and take it a step further. I think Lance plays every game about 10 plays, just enough to make fancy owners, fancy managers,
salivate.
And unhappy, right? Because you won't be able to start any.
Yeah.
I did read something today, Rhys, says Ayuk still hasn't practiced. We're recording this on Thursday night. And so do they need him against Detroit? Probably not. But there's a point to where having Ayuk in the lineup they'll need him when they go play against their division.
Yeah. But we'll see. And then Justin Fields, same thing. This depends on how well Dalton does and who they have. The Rams. Then they're home versus the Bengals. Then they're at the Browns, home versus the Lions, at the Raiders, home versus the Packers. Talk about a roller coaster, right? Up and down, up and down. We'll see how Andy Dalton does. And I think Fields is by far the better quarterback, in my opinion, in terms of ability.
Yeah.
We know the intangibles that Andy Dalton brings, and those are plentiful, right? But shoot, Fields, I think, can do a lot, and I really look forward to seeing what he does.
Especially if you're the third best team in the division, you need that upside.
I'm sure Denver and Carolina fans are thinking, please don't be great, because they dropped the ball on not selecting him, and both taking a corner in the draft as opposed to Fields. So Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn will be looking over their shoulders and seeing how Justin Fields did, because it could have been him instead of them.
Well, I mentioned this on a previous podcast. But the other team that probably could have taken a quarterback would be the Lions, because if they
Yeah.
have Fields on their team, they have a lot of upside, and they could have
Yeah.
flipped Goff to a team that could have used a quarterback. Let's say the football team before they got Fitzpatrick, they could have flipped Goff to him for future first rounder, and then taken Justin Fields, and their trajectory would be looking a lot higher than whenever they take Penei Sewell.
Yeah, but even like your Broncos, people are talking about them possibly trading either Fuller or Callahan. And I'm like, well, you would need it if you drafted Fields
Yeah.
and just let your DBs like they are. And so, we enjoy the soap opera. We enjoy watching all this play out, Jeff. We enjoy seeing, hey, was that T. Fertiller guy, was he right about Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson? Was he not? We all enjoy this, and that's why we dig it. We're up late on a Thursday night recording this because we enjoy the games. We enjoy the drama, the soap opera of it. I have one question for both of you guys. This Thursday, it may change between now and when this airs. Where and when does Cam Newton sign?
I don't know, man. And here's the thing with Cam is now we've seen him kind of excused from two different teams, and it could be more not necessarily his play, but the type of personality and attitude and behind the scenes type of persona that he has. And no one's ever going to admit it. But in a sense, Ron Rivera has mentioned that before, that he's kind of a handful. And, I can't imagine Cam and Bill Belichick really, they're like oil and water, it seems. That's a tough one. Now that we've seen two teams just kind of say, okay, there's the door. You kind of wonder a little bit, do you want this type of a player on your team? And not even really getting into the whole X's and O's of it all. He's going to have, it took him a year, if not more, to learn the New England offense. What is he going to have in terms of struggles if he goes to a new team and has to learn that offense? I could see him being more of like a goal line type of weapon, a Taysom Hill-ish type of player, wherever he may land. I don't necessarily see him as a starter, or maybe not even a backup, even though that's kind of the role he would have to play. I see him more as just an offensive weapon inside the 5-yard line. Give him the ball. He could still score 7 or 8 touchdowns this year if he's not quarterback. He could.
Yeah.
And it just depends on where he might go. So if I had to pick, you mentioned a good one there with Seattle. That's interesting, Jeff. Houston needs somebody, right? But I don't think Houston's really the spot. Perhaps Jacksonville, but I don't really see Urban Meyer taking him on. A team that he would fit. Not Green Bay. That's not it. Man, what if he went to Tampa? What if he went to Tampa?
Or Dallas? I can see him Dallas.
Or Denver.
But Denver already has 2 guys. They're not going to pay.
You don't think Denver?
They're not going to pay a third.
I don't know, man. I have no answer there. I just think that wherever he goes, he's going to be more of a weapon rather than a quarterback.
What do you think, Rhys?
I feel like the correct answer is Houston, but it's not going to be the right answer for Cam or the Texans.
Right.
The Texans are going to, I think the Texans will sign him and then realize their mistake midway through the year. But by that point, the Deshaun Watson dust will probably have settled and they will see their error of their ways, but they can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Gruden's always been kind of enamored with him.
Yeah.
John Gruden has, although he says a lot of things about everybody, right? Hey, he's the best linebacker to this, you'll see. But I could potentially see Gruden trying to pull a fast one and throwing him into their offense somehow, some way. That seems like a fit.
2 things.
I don't know.
two things. His vaccination stance, I think, will stand in the way somewhat.
True.
And I think he will only sign after week 1, so his contract's not guaranteed. Nobody's going to give him big money
Right.
for that.
Right.
And if I'm him, given those two, I wait till there's an injury. Like
Yeah.
if Dak goes down,
Yeah.
Dallas is going to be desperate, right?
Yep.
Or, and I mentioned Seattle with Geno Smith. I mean, Pete Carroll will be chomping that gum fast with Geno Smith under center. I just think that at this point, he's better off just waiting because he's not going to get big money beforehand. And so
wherever he
the
go
only
ahead,
one
sorry.
I was going to say is, given the Carson Wentz situation, if Indianapolis thinks they're a contender, which I don't agree with, but if they think they're a contender, I could see that.
Wherever he lands, whoever that running back is that might be on your fantasy roster for that team is that's going to be a downward spike for that particular player. Let's just say he goes to the Raiders, right? Josh Jacobs. Sorry, Cam's getting that ball inside the 4. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I don't know where he'll land, but wherever he goes, there's going to be someone who's not going to be too happy with the running back situation there.
The other thing, and I'm sure Rhys was thinking of it because he's way ahead of me most of the time, is that two of the most respected coaches in the NFL, the longest tenured, maybe outside of Andy Reid, said no thanks.
Tomlin?
No, to Cam. So Ron Rivera.
Oh, Rivera and Belichick is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, two of the longest tenured guys don't want him. And Rivera
could Pittsburgh
only has
potentially get him? Could Pittsburgh get him?
Possibly, and he's an upgrade over Mason Rudolph, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you would be though, Jeff. And so I just don't. I'm just saying though, two of the longest. So Tomlin's been able to handle all personalities. I mean, of course he pushes guys out that can't do it, and we never hear about it. But I guess Tomlin would be it. But if you have 2 strikes against you, and one of them's Belichick and the other one's Rivera, it's uphill. And you all mentioned Houston. I just don't see it. I think Houston, since they won all draft picks for Deshaun Watson, I think they want a tank. And so having a guy like Cam versus Tyrod, you'd rather just have Tyrod or Davis
Mills, right,
and tank. You'd rather just circle the drain.
Hey, Jeff, can I throw a dynasty question at you here? What, if anything, are you getting out of J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, or Travis Etienne? If you're looking to sell, what could you potentially get? Or what would you want?
I had this question earlier today. So of the 3, the guy I want the least is Akers. Achilles are rough. There haven't been too many guys that have rebounded from that. Etienne is the guy who I think is undervalued because he had surgery today. I think it was today, maybe yesterday. And he's only out 4 or 5 months. So that puts him January. And then he has the whole offseason to get better. Sure, you have the risk because of James Robinson, right? You have that risk that he explodes. But, man, they were talking Etienne up before he got injured. So he'd be the one I'd be riding. I love J.K. Dobbins. He's got an 8 or 9 month recovery with that ACL. We don't know if there was any other damage. So you take 8 or 9 months, puts him in June, July. That's kind of tight for him to come back.
Would you wait to trade him or trade him now? It kind of seems like it makes more sense to trade him later.
The only one I would trade now is Akers, just because I don't. I mean, the chances of the Achilles, all it's going to take is one speed bump in the recovery to make everybody go south on him.
Yeah.
And Etienne, who cares if you're getting next year's picks now? You're trading. I mean, next year's draft class is supposed to be lesser than this year's at all those positions. So I mean, I don't know. I like Dobbins. I like Etienne. Don't like Akers. In fact, I I will probably be active in my dynasty leagues trying to pursue those two guys, especially in leagues that have injured reserve.
Yeah.
Because if you have a late first round pick next year because you think your team's good, why would you not give it for one of those two guys?
Right.
And throw in a whatever else running back. Do you think Rhys? Do you think I'm wrong on those?
No. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is in a really good situation as long as he can keep Gus Edwards to the side, which was the predominant thought, even with Lamar Jackson there. And Travis Etienne, besides they both J.K. and Etienne both have stiff competition, at least with one running back that is pretty good. And I don't think, like you said, I don't think Akers is coming back as strong as he was at the end of last year. He's not going to do what he did on Thursday night to the Patriots again.
And he's got Michelle under contract for 2 more years and Henderson under contract for 3 years. They would not have traded for Michelle if they thought Akers was going to be great next year. They would have signed Le'Veon Bell or somebody like that, or you know what I mean. I think the Sony Michelle trade, giving up a 4th, tells you that.
And Akers didn't even do it on the field, right? Didn't he do it like the gym or something?
It was off the field. I'm just saying. You understand. I cheer for these guys. I cheer for these guys. I had Cam Akers on some Debbie teams because he was a quarterback in high school, and those Florida State teams at the end of his career weren't very good. You know, we had to kind of project. But Rhys is right. I like Dobbins. I like Etienne. And I would even argue that Akers has as much competition as those two with both Michelle and Henderson. You disagree, Rhys?
Henderson and Michelle are not near as talented as Gus Edwards is. Gus Edwards is getting 5 or 6 yards to carry no matter who the other running back is.
That's fair. But you could say it's the offense. But, you know, James Robinson's very good as well, right?
Yes. Showed us that last year.
James Robinson's my undervalued dynasty player right now, Jeff. Just because I see people trading him for peanuts because they're saying, well, it's only 1 year. I'm like, if he does great this year.
Yeah, right.
They're not going to be like, oh, no, we're our bad, you know?
Yeah, right.
They're going to figure out what to do with Etienne and Robinson. Because Robinson being such a cheap running back because he was a low peg, I mean, they have him for 2 more years after this year.
Yeah.
So anyway, we always enjoy talking to you, Jeff, and I thank you for joining us, and thanks for Rhys, you know, always bringing the heat on me. And so thanks for joining us, Jeff.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Have a good one. Bye.